Poe. This next question will start with Mr. Berkowitz. What is your position on the recent passed legislation allowing university students to carry guns on University of Alaska campuses? Do you agree with the Board of Regents' declaration in opposition to this law?
I would say I'm packaged, but I'm not. I tried to come loaded for this question, but I think the Second Amendment's pretty clear in this state, or the state equivalent of the Second Amendment. And the problem I have with the way the Regents dealt with the issue was the process wasn't clear and the process wasn't transparent. And if you're going to do anything to restrict anybody's constitutional right, regardless of what constitutional right it is, you got to have a clear and transparent process. There are occasions where you do restrict someone's right, but it has to be very tightly circumscribed, very rare instances. So my preference is you go with the constitutional right unless there's a compelling reason not to. So I hope that answers your question. If I have to come to campus armed in the future, I will. But in the meanwhile, I'm sticking with this position. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berkowitz. Mr. Walker.
You know, I'm in favor of the Second Amendment. Someone asked me about guns recently in a forum, and I had to admit that most of my guns are nail guns. But you know, I couldn't pry that nail gun out of my cold dead hands because of my elbow these days. So but I do support the Second Amendment. I believe there are circumstances when you have to be necessary and appropriate to regulate. But I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Mr. Price.
I was a former state prosecutor. I spent 6 years doing criminal prosecution here in the state of Alaska, and I've seen lots of gun violence. And I know how damaging it is, how damaging gun violence can be. On the other hand, most people who hold guns, who carry guns, who work with guns are law-abiding citizens. And my belief is that the only folks who really need to be worried about gun control are criminals, people who break the law. We had several crime bills come through the legislature this year, one helping former felons get their gun rights back. I supported that. Another that declared the so-called Federal Firearms Freedom Act. I opposed that. That was a bill that says you can build guns in Alaska free of federal regulation. And frankly, it was a 19-to-1 vote in the Senate. I was the only person to oppose that. I opposed that because I believe that it's sending a signal to individual Alaskans to go ahead and break the law, build a gun that the feds don't regulate, and it's setting those poor individuals up for federal prosecution, which is something you should go all your life and avoid. Right? You don't want that to happen to yourself. Don't do that. So I was a no vote on that. So you have to have a balance in these things. Like I say, I supported giving the rights back to felons after they've had their time and they've been clean, if they've not been convicted of a crime involving a person. I was opposed to the Federal Firearms Freedom Act. Students want to carry guns on campus. I guess I guess that's all right. It wouldn't be my first choice, but that's the way the Second Amendment reads. So thanks for the question.
Thank you, Mr. French. Mr. Poe.
I'm thinking about this. I'm a gun owner. I'm an NRA member, all that sort of thing. But honestly, I don't see any reason why you need to be carrying a gun in school. I don't. So I wouldn't support it.
Thanks. James before the 11 know to stand up here and wholeheartedly agree with you. The process was a bit flawed, but I would vote
Thank you, Mr. Mr. Walker, the fourth question is, the tourism industry is a vital part of the Alaskan economy and has been damaged due to the recent economic downturn. What policies would you suggest to counter such a loss in revenue or to revive that specific industry?
Love the question. I come from the tourism industry in Valdez years ago. When I looked into the cruise ships, and now we sort of do a litmus test of what's successful in Alaska by the number of cruise ships, that's not really the true test. There's a whole lot of independent tour groups in Alaska that don't necessarily relate to the cruise ships. They're separate from that. When I discovered that of the cruise ships that come to Alaska, only 20% actually get off and do stuff in Alaska, that 80% is a market. I mean, I'd go after that 80% in a minute and get those 80%. They're already coming to our doorstep. Let's entice them sort of out of the sort of out of the hole of some of the companies that they sort of stay within that system and stay in the hotels and stay on the buses. Let's get them into Alaska and get them to stay here. They're already here, and that's a tremendous opportunity. Give them some incentives, a rebate of some sort. You get them out into Alaska. That's 80% of the number that just catch the next plane home. So I would aggressively go after that to do that. More direct marketing, more marketing for the independent tourism in Alaska, I think is important. But boy, I'd go after that 80%. Boy, they're already here. They're showing up. Let's get them into RVs and out to fishing lodges and on charter boats and let's go after that market.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Ms. Frank.
The cruise ship head tax was a topic of a lot of discussion this year. We were lobbied very heavily. It was a huge effort to roll back the cruise ship head tax, undo the will of the people. It's actually one of the few conversations where a lobbyist changed my mind. I was thinking about voting to roll back the head tax, and I had this face-to-face conversation with a lobbyist in the hallway before I went to vote, and I said, now you're telling me if we roll back the head tax, we'll get more tourists, right? And he said, well, no, you've also got to spend more money on marketing. I said, well, we put $12 million into the budget for marketing, so roll back the head tax, spend more money on marketing, more tourists, right? Well, no, you've got to also reform your regulatory regime. Cruise ship head tax, more money for marketing, reform your regulatory regime. I mean, you mean like let the cruise ships dump more dirty water in Alaska? And he's like, well, and I said, okay, I know where I am, and there were 3 of us that voted no on that cruise ship head tax rollback in the Senate. And I'm proud that I did that. I think it was not the right idea. We did provide $12 million in marketing, and that's an important part of the effort to bring more tourists to Alaska. You've got to get the word out. You've got to let people know you're here. And so we've come through every year to help small businesses, know that we're pumping the Alaskan brand just as other states do. Hawaii is big on marketing. All states do this, and so you've got to sort of pump the brand up through these marketing dollars. $12 million this year. We'll keep the effort going in the future. That's the way you bring folks here. But you don't give in on your regulatory regime. You don't give in on basics like protecting your water. This is an intergenerational issue that we cannot give up on. And they'll keep pushing, and if we let them, they'll take it. And so you need people who are willing to stand up to powerful industry. I was distressed by the way the governor went to Miami, spoke to those cruise ship people, and came back here like he'd been taken to the woodshed and suddenly proposed a head tax rollback. I just thought that was unseemly. I didn't think it was very well done. He should have waited a decent interval and let him and so I was skeptical of that rollback. I was a no vote, and and it passed. We'll see if it works, but I was skeptical about it.
Thank you, Mr. French. Mr. Post.
I was very disappointed with the head tax rollback as well, because our economy depends on a 3-legged stool. 1/3 is oil and gas, 1/3 is federal spending, and 1/3 is everything else, which includes tourism and fishing and air cargo and all that. And we need to grow that 3rd leg of the stool. So tourism, as Bill said, especially the independent tourist, is a really key part of that. Now, what we did is we rolled back on the head tax, but we didn't take that money that we were already getting from cruise ships and put it in that money that we were using for marketing. The ships aren't here not because the cruise ships decided to not bring the ships here because of the head tax. You're not honestly believing that $12 makes a difference in whether you're buying a cruise or not. I mean, we barely think about $12 up here for a couple of lattes. That is not why it's happening. The reason it's happening is because we have a down economy and people aren't coming. Last summer, I thought I should definitely go to Michigan and play golf because I saw ads from Michigan all the time. And I'm thinking, this is the state that has, houses for $50,000 in Detroit and all these terrible things. How come they can afford to market Alaska and we're not? So what I think we should have been doing is marketing the heck out of Alaska, getting those passengers off those cruise ships, because a cruise ship tries to control you from cradle to grave. They want everything, every dollar you spend, they want a percentage of that. And that's not the kind of thing we want. We don't want to just be a backdrop for cruise ships, but we want to be as a vital visitor place for people so that we can show off Alaska and they can appreciate it and spend their money here. So it multiplies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.